Tabitha, Tabitha, Tabitha. Samantha's plans for a mortal-type Halloween go wildly awry when Tabitha zaps up 3 unearthly goblins for a night of trick-or-treating. It may be safe, but it's definitely not going to be sane. Hi, I'm Mark Simpson.
And I'm David Pierce.
I'm Adam Michael James. Welcome to Twitch Talk.
In the morning.
What's up, freakers? It's tea time. Today I want to tell you about a book I'm reading. Now, it's not just any book. It's got words and a cover and pages. No, it's not just any kind of book. It's a history book. Now you're probably thinking, why in the name of all that glitters do I want to read a history book? But this isn't some kind of rag about generals and politicians and all that crap. No, this is the Bewitched history book, and it's one of my favorites. It's full of facts and dates, but it's also got trivia and anecdotes about our favorite show, Bewitched. Now here's a gleaming little nugget. Did you know that the day that Samantha for the Defense Part 2 aired, December 15th, 1966, that Walt Disney passed from this earth to that great adventure park in the sky? Who knew? Now I could tell you more, but that would keep you from getting over to Amazon and buying your own copy. Y'all enjoy.
I like a nice cup of tea in the morning for to start the day.
Welcome back to the Halloween episode of Twitch Talk. I'm Mark Simpson. I'm the producer of the Bewitched Fanfare events and the admin of the Facebook pages and groups. And our next event is scheduled for May 6th through 8th in Salem, Massachusetts. For more information, visit bewitchedfanfare.com. Tonight we're going to be discussing episode number 115, A Safe and Sane Halloween. The episode was written by James Henderson. It was produced and directed by William Asher, and the executive producer was Harry Ackerman. The regular cast featured Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha, Dick York as Darren, Aaron and Diane Murphy as Tabitha, Sandra Gould as Gladys, George Tobias as Abner, David White as Larry Tate, and Casey Rogers as Louise Tate. Additions to the cast are Bobby Rhea as Tommy, Monty Margits as Mrs. Robinson, Jerry Marin as the Gremlin, Felix Sia as Goblin, Billy Curtis as Jack-o'-lantern, and Larry Barton as Man. And we'll start off with the official Screen Gems episode description. Now keep in mind that these descriptions were written from an early draft of the script. They may contain scenes that did not end up in the final draft, or a scene that was filmed and may have been cut for time. Samantha reads Halloween stories to Tabitha and shows her pictures in the book. When Darren scolds Samantha, she insists the stories are harmless and Tabitha will go trick-or-treating like any other child. Upstairs, Tabitha brings the spooks to life and the picture page is blank. Gladys Kravitz prepares to take her nephew Tommy out in a jack-o'-lantern costume. She tells Abner that Samantha should stay home that night. While Gladys is snooping around, Tommy hears laughter from Tabitha's room. A spook pokes its head out, and Tommy dashes out in terror. Later, as Darren waits for Louise and Larry Tate, Samantha and Tabitha go out. The spooks follow, and Samantha thinks they are Tabitha's friends. When they play rude tricks, Tabitha insists it wasn't friends. Samantha takes her home and is horrified when she sees the blank page. Samantha can't get the spooks back. Tommy changes places with the jack-o'-lantern. After the spook shoves a cake in a neighbor's face, Gladys takes him home. Tommy and the other spooks play tricks on Darren and the twins. The jack-o'-lantern scares the wits out of Gladys, and she rushes over to the Stevens where the spooks have changed Tommy into a goat. With a few words, Tabitha gets the spooks back in the book. Darren and Samantha are relieved when Tabitha settles down with a teddy bear. As soon as they leave, a grizzly bear lumbers out of Tabitha's closet. And the log line reads, Tabitha brings Halloween pictures to life. Now let's check in with David for a little bit of historical information on this episode. David?
Thanks, Mark. I'm David Pierce and I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm the author of the Bewitched history book, which is available now at bearmanormedia.com, Amazon.com, and other fine retailers. Tonight's episode of Safe and Sane Halloween originally aired on the ABC television network 5 days before Halloween on Thursday, October 26, 1967 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Central Time. It is the 115th episode of the series and the 8th episode of Season 4. Production on this episode was completed on Friday, July 14, 1967. Now, I'm sure Mike has some continuity issues, so take it away, Mike.
Thank you, David. I'm Adam Michael James, author of the Bewitched Continuum. I, Samantha, take this mortal Darren, and the just-released Samantha 70s. He who lives by continuity dies by continuity, so let's get into some of the continuity stuff of this episode. I would not trust Larry in terms of swearing off alcohol. He does that here, but he just swore off booze 6 episodes earlier in Toys and Babeland, so not trusting you, Larry. Darren gets a few points as well for doing Tabitha a solid and not freaking out when Tabitha zaps up the toy bear. He lets her keep it, which is actually really, really sweet. Now, let's talk about Tommy. He witnesses the gremlin zapping Larry and Darren. He hears Samantha talking openly about witchcraft, and he also watches Samantha remove the ear and the tail off of Darren and Larry, respectively. Is nobody worried that he's going to run home and tell Gladys all this stuff? Auntie Gladys, of all people? Maybe he forgets when he gets turned back from a goat, like the way he forgot he was a goat. Interesting that Louise and Larry have no clue, still, that all this witchcraft is going on. First off, Darren and Samantha each told Larry and Louise that Samantha's a witch, both in That Was My Wife and Double Split. And back in the second season Halloween episode, Twitch or Treat, all kinds of strange stuff is happening there too. And also, this is the third time that Gladys is over there making strange claims. The first was in the short Happy Circuit event Clara, and then Nobody But a Frog Knows How to Live. Yet, Larry and Louise still not quite getting it. What's also interesting is that Tabitha manages to play Ring Around the Rosie with these creatures that are stomping all around the floor. Darren and Samantha can't hear it. They also can't hear that there's a live bear in the closet, or when it roars. I mean, you'd think they'd run back up first thing. I guess they don't have their hearing aids turned up for that one. And finally, how can the creatures have powers? That would mean that Tabitha would have had to imbue them with powers, unless, they already had them in the story. But, and then the other thing about that is that if Samantha can't send the creatures back to the book, then Samantha shouldn't be able to undo their magic as she does. So, a few magical things going on. Doesn't mean that this is not a magical episode, though. Back to you, Mark.
Thanks, Mike. Now we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to bring in the panel, and we're going to discuss episode number 115, A Safe and Sane Halloween. Now, I'm going to be joining the panel from the cosmos on my way to the Halloween Galactic Rejuvenation and Dinner Dance. Oh, in fact, I'm late. I better change. See you in a minute.
TV. And what's more classic than Bewitched? But in the 60s, audiences didn't demand the same level of continuity that we expect today. So how to make sense of 8 seasons of Bewitched? The Bewitched Continuum, the only book to compare and contrast all 254 episodes, along with witch illnesses, top 10s, and more. It's the ultimate linear guide. And the slogan? The Bewitched Continuum. Come feel the magic.
Now available on Amazon.com.
Hey, where's Mark?
Well, he'll be here any minute. I think he got stuck in a headwind.
Here I am.
Mark.
Hi. Sorry I'm late. I took a wrong turn at Cloud 9, I think. And but here I am. So welcome everybody. This time we're going to be talking about episode number 115 from season 4, A Safe and Sane Halloween. And this is our Halloween show. So I see everybody is all Halloweeny.
Brought my mask.
A definite improvement.
Resemble that.
And do we all have our witchy drinks?
Of
Oh,
course.
yes.
Mine didn't turn out right.
It looks
Have a
good.
martini.
You think it's supposed to look like brains curdling in the bottom.
Looks like an Arnold Palmer.
The curdling didn't work.
So anyway, before we start, I'm going to introduce our special guest that's here with us today. I want everybody to say hello to Brett White.
Hi, Brett.
Brett is a writer for The Decider, and he's written a few Bewitched articles, but
Yay.
last year he wrote an article on this particular episode, so I thought it would be kind of fun to have Brett join us, and we'll talk about the article a little bit later, but I guess we'll start with some introductions, and I'm going to have Brett introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Brett White. I'm quarantined in Queens, in New York. I'm a senior reporter producer for Decider.com and the host of Must Have Seen TV, my sitcom podcast. So that's relevant to this.
So, okay, now we'll go to the panel, and we'll start with Taylor.
I'm Taylor Miller, and by the long arm of disaster, I join you from Athens, Georgia.
All right, and Justin.
I am Justin, and I am from Atlanta.
And June.
I'm June Nixon, and I'm from Seattle, Washington.
And Max.
I'm Max, and I'm from the West Midlands in the United Kingdom.
And Susan.
I'm Susan Hauser, and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia also.
And finally, Eru.
Hi, I am Era Gibson from Tokyo, Japan.
Well, thanks everybody for being here. And so we'll go ahead and get started, and I'm going to kind of switch things up this time. It's kind of like a little test. I ordinarily have David give a brief description of the episode, but I'm going to pick someone from the panel just as a test to make sure you actually are familiar with it. So who am I going to pick? I think I will pick Susan Hauser.
I'm not sure I can be succinct about this, but I will try. This is, I think, was it the 4th Halloween episode that they ran? It's about the beginning of it. Tabitha is getting read a Halloween book by Samantha. She's reading her Halloween story. And when Samantha leaves, Tabitha zaps, in her own little way, zaps out the characters of the Halloween book. It's a jack-o'-lantern, a goblin, and a gremlin. And they come to life. So Samantha takes Tabitha trick-or-treating, and unbeknownst to her, the goblin and gremlin and jack-o'-lantern follow. And she then invites them to go trick-or-treating with her. But all sort of horrible things start happening. People get tails and have pie thrown in their face and beards. And she thinks Tabitha's doing it, so she cuts things short, sends Tabitha to bed. And meanwhile, the the spooks are running around. There's a little dinner party with Larry and Louise that gets involved. And eventually, Tabitha puts the spooks back in the book. There's also a side story with Gladys Kravitz and one of her nephews who is dressed exactly as the same as the jack-o'-lantern, and they get confused. And, hilarity ensues, as we say.
So now we'll go ahead and we'll go through and we'll have everybody give their comments on the episode. If you noticed any bloopers, any continuity issues. So let's go ahead and start with David.
I love this episode. I think it's probably my favorite Halloween episode. I just like the trick-or-treating scenes with everybody outside. I think Tabitha is so cute, and I love her interactions with her parents. Oh, another thing that it's not so much a blooper, but it's just kind of cool to see is when the spooks are coming out of the house on the porch roof, there's 3 boards that are there, which are not in any of the other episodes, and I think they were just put there so that they could have something to kind of steady them as they were on there. A big blooper that also testifies to the to how great the cast was is when Liz is coming in from the dining room. She's taking a sip of her martini and it spills down her the front of her, and they all keep going like nothing happened, and that's in the episode, and I think that's really cool that they saved that.
Everything's under control. Mrs. Kravitz is coming over to pick up Tommy, and I guess I'll just have to get the other children home.
That's about all I can think of on this one. I love it, love it, love it.
Okay, well, thanks, David. How about you, Mike?
Well, this episode is a whole lot of fun, and Tabitha finally gets a Halloween. Maybe she was too young the previous year in, I always get trick or treat mixed up. But anyway, interesting that Samantha is okay with trick or treating now, where she wasn't the year before. I guess she kind of had some time to get used to that. She's right that Endora would have a fit because she did in the second season Halloween episode, and Endora is once again in the south of France as she was in The Witches Are Out in first season. So that's pretty cool continuity. I think it's kind of interesting that this is Gladys's 4th nephew. There was Floyd, there was Edgar, there was Flash, now there's Tommy. I kind of wish they would have just kept the same nephew over and over because it would have been more interesting to see the journey. And I guess Gladys's sister must be real busy. But also, there was no trick-or-treating. Like, Darren didn't go trick-or-treating because Larry was coming over and Samantha says, well, business is business. But they never conduct any business, so I don't know what happened with that. The other thing that I think I find the most unusual about this episode that kind of bothers me is that these 3 costume figures, all with their faces covered, come out of nowhere, follow Tabitha, and Samantha says, oh, it's okay, would you like to join us trick-or-treating? And it just hangs out with them. I know it was 1967 and it was a more genteel time, and maybe now we're like overly paranoid, but that just seems weird for me. And then Tabitha says, well, they're my friends. And Tabitha doesn't have any friends. The only kid we've ever seen her hang out with is Jonathan, and he's not even there trick-or-treating. The Tates came over, but they didn't come with Jonathan. Could have gone trick-or-treating with Samantha and Tabitha. Poor guy. Anyway, that's it for me.
Okay. How about you, Taylor?
Well, as your local resident historian, I just decided to see what this would have been like in 1967. Bewitched gets tens of millions of viewers every week, so it's a very pedagogical show. It teaches people how to interact with the culture in a way. 1967, there's a big concern by the National Safety Council that Halloween is going to be very dangerous for trick-or-treaters. So they release several different rules that trick-or-treaters should follow that are epitomized in this episode. They should always be under direct supervision. 9 p.m. should be the absolute deadline for when they should finish trick-or-treating, which is when Bewitched ended on the East Coast. Costumes should be short to avoid tripping hazards. You'll notice that most of the costumes are, except for the goblins. The material should be flame-proof. And there are recipes for how to make your costume flame-proof: boric acid, and water. Makeup is much better than a mask, and there must be flashlights rather than candles illuminating your jack-o'-lanterns. So I thought this was an interesting way of Bewitched sort of helping the National Safety Council inform and instruct people how to have a safe and sane Halloween.
Okay, very cool. So let's move on to Brett. Brett, what are your thoughts about the episode?
So I love Halloween sitcom episodes. Every year I try to watch 100 of them or more during the month of October, and I obsessively track them on Twitter. And so I've seen a bajillion of them. And the ones that really stand out to me are the ones that actually are creepy. Because usually it's like the cute kid goes trick-or-treating and there's some like hijinks, or maybe there's a real ghost, but it's really just like a rapscallion or something. But this one is actually legit creepy because those three goblins that she conjures up, and I don't know if they look normal in 1967, but in 2020, they look like the kind of creatures that would hang out with like Annabelle in The Conjuring or something. They're that, like, why is the pumpkin-headed goblin creature, why are they wearing bloomers under their weird, like, when she's crawling out of Gladys Kravitz's window and you can see it's like, what is that?
This time you've gone too far. If my Tommy isn't back to normal immediately, I'll call the authorities.
My favorite of the three of them, no, I love all three of them. I really like the fur monster because I don't know what that is. That's not a creature in like the canon of spooky Halloween stuff. I really love the little Peter Pan looking goblin because stone face the entire time. And just like, there's something funny about wearing a silly costume but having just like no expression. It just makes it even creepier. I love when he slaps Darren's hand. But yeah, I really enjoyed writing my article because I would just make GIFs and then slack them to my coworkers and just see the responses of like, good God, no, make it stop.
All right, well, thanks, Brett. Justin, how about you? What are your thoughts on the episode?
Well, I love Bewitched. It's my favorite show of all time. But because I love it, I like to nitpick episodes. And one of the things I noticed about this episode, Samantha just got done reading that book to Samantha. She probably pointed at all the pictures. And then these three creatures come from the book, and she doesn't recognize them. It's like she's never seen them before. Wouldn't she know they were from the book? And then if she didn't recognize them, you remember when you were a kid and you went trick-or-treating, what do? You say trick-or-treat. I don't think those creatures said a word. Wouldn't that raise her suspicions? Another thing, remember when Tabitha brought those creatures from the book before she went to bed? They went trick-or-treating the next night. That's almost 24 hours. Did those creatures just sit in Tabitha's room twiddling their thumbs for 24 hours? Those creatures are troublemakers. They're not going to sit there and play with Tabitha's dolls that long. They're going to cause trouble. And they didn't, and Samantha never noticed it. I love this episode for so many reasons. First of all, Mrs. Kravitz. This episode proves she's the smartest mortal in the entire series. Because she said, when she was working on Tommy's costume, they say their powers increase on Halloween. And Tommy said, is she a witch or something? And then Mrs. Kravitz says, you see, Tommy has my intuition.
Super costume. Oh, no, it isn't, sweetness. It's adorable. Oh, I wish I had the nerve to take you over to Mrs. Stevens and ask her if it looks real. How would she know? Is she a witch or something? You see? Tommy has my intuition.
I hope not.
Why?
Because one crazy person in the family is enough.
This episode has one of my favorite lines of the entire series. Samantha says to Tabitha, we're living in a world that isn't ready for us yet. And she says, it might not ever be. And I really love that line because it speaks to prejudice, which is the theme of the whole series.
I know what a wonderful feeling it is to be part of the magical life, but you're just going to have to try and understand that we're living in a world that, well, it isn't quite ready for us yet. I'm afraid they may never be. So I'm going to have to be very firm with you and insist that you wish your friends back into this book. It's very important to Daddy.
Daddy?
Yes.
When went home? Goblin home. Tail home.
Oh, that's a good girl.
Yes.
June, how about you?
You know, I love this episode so much because mainly of the nostalgia for this, because I'm about the same age as she was when she was a little girl. So I just, felt so much warmth and everything when I was watching this, just to remember the times that, I went trick-or-treating and things like that, and my great costumes that I used to have. But I just thought it was really cute when she said she wants to be a normal mom on Halloween, and she's reading like a kind of a scary story to a little 2-year-old. And I don't know how many moms really did that, because even though I love scary stories now, I would my mom definitely at that time frame would never read me a story about goblins and things like that when I was that age. But I thought it was really cute because when Darren came to the door, I thought for sure he was going to say something, you shouldn't read a story like that. It might scare her. No, it's because she loved it too much. That made me laugh too.
Sound asleep. All it took was a little bedtime story.
Do you think it's a good idea reading to Tabitha about goblins and creatures?
Oh, sweetheart, don't be silly. She loved it.
This episode just gave me the warm feelies all over. And, I just absolutely loved it. It's one of those episodes I could watch over and over and over again and just loved it. So, yes.
Okay, let's move on to Max.
Oh my stars, I absolutely love this episode. It is just one of my favourites ever. It's brilliant, it's funny, it's great, and it's so damn freaky, it's scary. I really do believe that this episode could actually be the makings of a classic horror film. Like what Brett said, those creatures are just so scary. I mean, I remember when I watched it when I was a kid, it was very scary. How a 2-3-year-old can, is fine with it. I don't know, even if she is a witch, but I really wasn't when I was about 8. But yeah, it's just really scary. I love this episode because it's just clever. It's funny. Tabitha looks so cute in her costume. It's just got everything. I do believe there is a continuity or a blooper that you may not have picked up on, Mike. I can't remember reading it in your book, but Herbie is in this episode and he takes one of the kids, and it's this young boy with a hideous vile mask on, and then in the next shot he's there and he's got a girl and she's in the Snow White costume. I'm sure it's the same person. I also love Abner Kravitz in this episode. I think he has some really funny lines, especially when he says, "Get away from the window, they may throw a rock at you." Funny.
Gladys, get away from the window.
Why?
Because maybe somebody will throw a rock at you.
Who would want to throw a rock at me?
Me, if you don't get away from the window.
Okay, let's move on to Susan.
Okay, I'm with you all about this episode reminding you of your childhood. It does me, and that's why it's one of my all-time favorites of the whole series. I do remember all the kids running around amok. It was just crazy. There were just tons and tons and tons of kids. And I also remember my mother sewed my Halloween costume every year, like Samantha does, and Gladys. They both sew those Halloween costumes, and that really rang true for me in the 60s. So many women knew how to sew back then and had sewing machines, and you don't find that now anymore. One thing, I thought it was strange that Samantha doesn't notice that the gremlin slams that door, and it's so obvious. He does his little finger like that, and I don't know why she didn't notice that and blamed it on Tabitha. I thought that was weird.
Here, now stop!
I thought I told you kids to beat it.
Who made a chocolate pie for Halloween? I thought that was the weirdest thing. She deserved to get it in her face for making something. How are you going to go door to door after that when you're carrying this piece of pie around in your hand?
I have never been so disgraced in all my life. You are going straight home, and you are going straight to bed.
I swear I don't know what's happening with children today.
And I want to show you my outfit. I know I look like I'm the only person that didn't remember to dress, but this is my special Halloween Bewitched shirt that has pumpkins on it down there at the bottom, and lots of bling. Anyway, that's all I got.
Let me start off by saying that as a Japanese, this story is very important, especially for me. Back in 60s, most Japanese didn't even know what Halloween is. So definitely not 60s. I think the history of Halloween in Japan can be traced back to the 1970s. So it was season 4. And I think most Japanese didn't know what's going on. And I think growing up in Japan, watching this episode, it means a lot, not only for Bewitched magic, but also as a symbol, American culture, knowing different country, and plus daily life, American daily life, plus magic. That was so exciting for us to watch. And what's happening now in 2020, Halloween is actually way bigger than the US here in Japan. I think most people do parade, and I just went to shopping mall yesterday. Halloween everywhere in Tokyo. And I think these TV series were triggers because we learned how exciting to... Actually, we didn't learn the original history of Halloween, but the merchants or promotion kind of parts, how to sell products or how to sell cookies and chocolates. But I think historically, this series Bewitched influenced Japan so much. And I think that's why this story really means a lot to me. And personally, it stood out to me when Samantha and Mrs. Gladys were upset with their children, Tommy the jack-o'-lantern. They were trying to send them to bed. So that is very, very Western punishment to children. To me, especially, if I can go to bed, that is a reward. So I did not understand what's going on. Why children are allowed to go to sleep, why children can rest, but their moms and aunts are pretty upset. This is America, you know what I mean? This is America. They celebrate Halloween, and they celebrate with neighborhoods. Here in Japan, we don't even say hello to neighbor. So I think that's why we dreamt about so much, thinking about foreign world, foreign country. And yeah, that's why I really love this episode.
All right. Well, thanks, Aero. So now I guess I'll give my thoughts on the episode. I think it's another fun episode. I enjoy it. I don't know. I don't know if it's my favorite Halloween episode. I don't know. I think it's a toss-up between this one and the season 1 episode, The Witches Are Out. But to me, the thing about anytime that they did like a holiday episode, either, you know, Halloween, Christmas, the one Thanksgiving episode, to me, it always had the feeling that it was Halloween and that it was Christmas. And, you know, they just conveyed that feeling. And And that's part of the enjoyment. And I can't believe that Mike did not notice Herbie, in the background with different kids.
Well,
I even noticed that.
hey, in my defense, I had to cut a lot of stuff out, and you know how huge the book is already.
I don't know. Otherwise, it's just, to me, it's just another fun episode. Again, it's not, there's not a real message to it or anything, I don't think. So anyway, does anybody have any other comments or questions or anything like that before we take a break?
Nope.
No? All right. So we'll take a break, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Getting together for a few good laughs, the kick of adventure, a quiet moment to share a song. That's part of the fun of life. We've got a lot to share. Let's get together. Let's get together. We've got a lot to share. We've got a lot to share.
On with the binge watching. Load up the next disc.
Can't. That was the last one.
You mean Bewitched ended on a regular episode?
That's right. Series finales weren't a thing when Bewitched was on the air.
Adam Michael James?
We love your ultimate linear guide to the show.
Hey, didn't you come up with a series finale in that book? Sure did, baby. Only now, I've novelized it. I, Samantha, Take This Mortal Darren not only brings our supernatural sitcom full circle, it brings back beloved characters and creates backstories for Samantha and Darren.
Wow, 5 stars on Amazon.
All the reviews say it reads just like an episode of Bewitched.
Well, thank you. I'm just doing my thing. But I'm most proud to say that I, Sam, builds on the show's messages of equality and acceptance.
Sounds groovy, AMJ.
Thanks for these.
Hey, McMahon and Tate never did freebies. But you can pop over to Amazon or order them from Barnes & Noble. I'll boost ya. Oops. Should have also told them the ebook is on Kindle and iTunes. Well...
I, Samantha, Take This Mortal Darren, the series finale Bewitched never had, in print and ebook.
I'm a senior reporter producer for Decider, and we cover anything that streams. So in 2020, that means literally every TV show and movie pretty much ever made. Everything is fair game as long as you can stream it or buy it on VOD or whatever. And I use that to write a lot about classic television. I also write about Bewitched. And so every time that I get the opportunity to write about a classic television show, I always pounce on it. And it helps that there are fandoms like the Bewitched fandom, because I wrote a thing 2 years ago, I think, about The Witches Are Out, about how that episode gets into a lot of surprisingly progressive politics for, the dangers of stereotyping, et cetera, and that article blew up way more than you would expect for a show that's 55 years old. Successes like that, when you read an article and you share it, you click on it, it tells us on the other side, write more about this, and so that makes me happy. So I got to write about A Safe and Sane Halloween because I discovered it. I don't know if I discovered it 2 years ago. I'm a Nick at Night kid, and so Nick at Night only had the black and white episodes. So I grew up just watching those first 2 seasons on a loop, and so I grew up just watching those all the time, so I've never seen A Safe and Sane Halloween. I've honestly not seen the majority of the show, which is actually wild to think about because it's a show that I thought I knew, and then I grew up and realized, wait a second, there's like, what, 5, 6, 7 more seasons all in color? So I watched A Safe and Sane Halloween probably for the first time last year, maybe 2 years ago, and I was like, this episode is fully wild. I have to write about it. And you can buy it on Amazon, so I did that so I could write about it. And I think my editors give me a lot of leeway. I think if I was writing for another place, they would be like, why? This is old television, who cares? But they kind of trust my instincts and let me write ridiculous things, which is my forte, is writing ridiculous things about old shows. I also host a podcast about old sitcoms, and I do Halloween episodes every year. I've not done Safe and Sane Halloween yet. I might this year. That might happen, because I could just talk about it forever.
Okay, well, welcome back to Twitch Talk, and now we're going to do our reviews and our ratings, and we're going to go through, and we're going to have each member of the panel give a brief review of the episode, and then they're going to rate it from 1 to 4 stars, 1 being the worst, 4 being the best. We'll go back at the end, and we'll average it out, and we'll come up with the overall rating for this episode. So let's start with David.
I give this episode 4 stars, definitely. I think it's in one of my top, when I did the countdown of the 50 top episodes, I think it was number 10, if I remember right. But 4 stars, 4 stars.
And Mike.
I tend to watch this episode every Halloween and will again this year. It's just so much fun. It's very strange. I don't find it as disturbing as Brett does, but Brett, you are right when you say that the title doesn't actually make sense because this Halloween is neither safe nor sane. The other thing I really like is we're in this neat sweet spot of sound effects. Like when 4th season started changing over from the orchestral to the electronic, they were very experimental, and so that really worked well for this episode. I am going to give it 3 stars.
Okay, so Brett, how would you rate this episode?
So if you follow me on Twitter at Brett White, you'll see that every year I make a really probably annoying thread for people that don't care about sitcoms where I actually like rate every single one that I write. And I think consistently this one gets 5 pumpkins or 5 skulls or 5 spiders or whatever. So I would be a liar if I gave it anything less than the highest rating possible, which is a 5, not 4. Or cobwebs.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to give it 4, but we think that's great. How about you, Justin?
Love this episode. One of my favorites. Got to give it 4 stars.
All right, and June.
Yes, this is definitely 4 stars for me too. I just love this. And it's going to be my new tradition every Halloween now.
Cool. Max.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely 4 stars. It's just got everything. It's hilarious, and it's creepy. What Halloween is, yeah.
Can be. How about you, Susan?
I give it 4 also. It has a lot of inconsistencies, and it's creepy and all that good stuff, but it also makes me just feel very warm and cuddly because it's so much a snapshot of my childhood.
Great. And Eru.
I will give this episode 3.5. I love everything, but I just feel so sorry for Mrs. Gladys because everything she says is basically correct, right? I feel really, really sorry for her. So that part is for her.
Okay. And finally, Taylor.
This nostalgic episode has a wonderful and rich production. It's got interiors, exteriors, facades, dozens of extras, pies in the face, even a bearded lady. One of the best oh my stars in the series. So I give it 4.
All right, well, my turn. I think this is just a fun episode, and again, I don't know. I don't know if it's my favorite Halloween episode or not, but I love it. It's just fun, and I give it 4 stars. Okay, so we've averaged it out, and the overall rating for A Safe and Sane Halloween is 3.85. So we're going to round that up to 4 stars. We'll take another quick break, and then we'll be right back, and we'll wrap it up.
Y'all bored at home? You got nothing to do? The Bewitched History Book will come to your rescue. With over 700 pages of info and fun, you won't want to put it down until the day is done, huh? If you're a true Bewitched fan, then all we can say is get online and order yours today.
So I want to thank my co-hosts, David, Mike, members of the panel, Justin, June, Max, Susan, Eru, and Taylor, and our very special guest, Brett White. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy Halloween!
Thanks, Glenn.
Best witches, everyone. See you next time.